I felt that something was wrong in my home. I couldn't explain it with words, but I felt it in every fibre of my body. Something rotten, dark, dangerous. Then I faked that I was in surgery and would need to stay in the hospital for several days. I told my daughter Audrey that it was a delicate operation, that I would be out of contact, and that she shouldn't worry. But in reality, I was hiding in the house of Betty, my neighbour across the street, watching my own house as if I were a stranger. I had been there for hours, in the darkness, when that elderly lady touched my shoulder. Betty stared at me and whispered with a certainty that terrified me. "Wait until 12:15 a.m. You'll see everything." I didn't know what to say. I just nodded. The clock advanced slowly, torturing me. 11:30, 11:40, 12 o'clock, 12:10. My breathing became erratic. 12:14. My hands were trembling. And then it came. Exactly 12:15 in the morning, I saw movement at the entrance of my house. Someone unlocked the door. The lights came on. I held my breath at what I saw. It was Carl, my son-in-law, my daughter's husband. But he didn't come alone. 2 other people entered. They started walking around my house as if it were theirs. They were taking pictures. They were measuring the walls. They were checking my things. And in that instant, I knew that my worst nightmare was only just beginning. My name is Eleanor, and I am 65 years old. All my life revolved around 2 loves, my late husband and my daughter Audrey. When my husband died 7 years ago in that terrible accident, I thought I wouldn't survive the pain. But Audrey saved me. She was my reason to breathe, to get up, to keep going. We built a beautiful relationship. We were more than mother and daughter. We were companions, confidants, friends. When she met Carl 6 years ago, I was deeply happy. He seemed like a good man, hardworking, polite, attentive. They got married, and I gave them the land next to my house so they could build their home. I wanted to keep them close. I wanted us to form that close-knit family I always dreamed of. My house isn't large, but it's valuable. With the growth of the neighborhood, it's now worth close to $450,000. Real estate agents have contacted me dozens of times offering to buy it. I always refused. That house is my history. Every corner holds memories. The yard where Audrey learned to walk. The kitchen where we baked apple pie together. The living room where we celebrated 1,000 Christmases. It's not just property. It's my entire life converted into walls and a roof. For months, everything seemed perfect. We had pancakes together on Sundays. Audrey came to visit me almost every afternoon. Carl helped me with house repairs. But about 3 months ago, something changed. It was subtle at first, so subtle that I thought I was imagining it. Audrey started coming around less. When she did come, she seemed distracted, nervous. She avoided my gaze. Conversations became superficial, uncomfortable. Carl, on the other hand, became excessively kind, overly solicitous. He constantly asked me about my health, if I felt tired, if I forgot things, if I needed help with documents. Questions that seemed innocent, but which began to sound strange. One afternoon, I arrived at their house early without calling ahead. I heard voices inside. They were talking in low, urgent tones. I knocked on the door and the voices stopped abruptly. Audrey opened it with a forced smile. I asked her if everything was okay. She said yes, that they were just watching TV. But the television was off. I started to notice more things. Objects disappearing from my house. Small thing at first. An old photograph. A porcelain vase that had belonged to my mother. Documents that were on my desk. And then weren't. I thought I was becoming forgetful. But something inside me knew that wasn't the case. One night I saw them from my window. Carl and Audrey were in their yard, talking with a man I didn't know. He was carrying a briefcase and papers. It looked like a serious meeting. The next day, I asked Audrey who that man was. She turned pale. She said he was an insurance salesman. A lie. I knew it from her voice, from how she avoided my gaze, from how she quickly changed the subject. That night I couldn't sleep. I began to make a mental list of all the strange things. The sudden silences when I entered a room, the phone calls that Carl abruptly cut short when he saw me, the visits of unknown people to my house when I supposedly wasn't there, but which my neighbour Betty mentioned having seen. Betty is a woman of almost 80 years. She has lived across from my house for decades. She was always discreet, quiet, observant. One day she stopped me on the street. She looked at me seriously and said, "Eleanor, be careful. I've seen things I don't like." I asked her what she meant. She shook her head. "I can't tell you yet, but keep your eyes open." Her words haunted me for days. I decided to pay closer attention. I started writing everything down: dates, times, strange behaviors. A week later, I found a document in the pocket of Carl's coat. He had left it hanging in my house. I couldn't resist the temptation. I read it. It was a quote for a nursing home, a residence for seniors, with my name handwritten in the corner. I felt the ground open up beneath my feet. Why did Carl have that? Why was my name on it? I didn't say anything. I put the paper back exactly where it was. But that night, I didn't sleep. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling my world crumble. I had to know the truth. I needed to find out what was really going on. That's when I created my plan. I would call Audrey and tell her I needed urgent surgery, something related to my heart, that I would be hospitalized for at least a week. No visitors allowed due to risk of infection. Perfect. During that time, I would hide and observe what they did when they thought I wasn't there. I asked Betty for help. I told her my suspicions. She nodded slowly. "It's about time you figured it out," she told me. "Come to my house when you pretend to leave for the hospital. From my window, you'll see everything." So I did it. I called Audrey crying. I invented symptoms. I said the doctor insisted on operating immediately. She sounded worried, but I detected something else in her voice. Relief? Anticipation? I wasn't sure. Carl offered to take me to the hospital. I told him I had already called a taxi, not to bother. I packed a small suitcase. I left my house. But instead of taking a taxi, I walked straight to Betty's house. She was waiting for me with the door ajar. I settled into Betty's second-floor bedroom. From the window, I had a perfect view of my house and Audrey's house. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon when I arrived. Betty brought me hot tea and chocolate chip cookies, but I couldn't eat anything. My stomach was clenched with anxiety. I sat by the window and waited. The hours passed with unbearable slowness. I saw Carl leave his house at 5 o'clock. He got in his car and left. Audrey left half an hour later. She also left. My house remained empty, silent, as if it were dead. Darkness began to fall. I turned on a small lamp behind me so as not to be completely in the dark, but I kept the main lights off. I didn't want anyone to know I was there. Observing. Betty came up around 8 o'clock with hot soup. "You have to eat something," she told me firmly. I took a few sips just to please her. I asked her what she had seen, what she knew. She shook her head. "You'll see for yourself soon. It's better that way. You need to see it with your own eyes, so you have no doubts." Her words terrified me more. What was so serious that I needed to see it myself? What had Audrey and Carl done? My mind began to imagine terrible scenarios. Maybe they were stealing from me. Maybe they were planning to kick me out of my house. Maybe they wanted to declare me incompetent and take everything from me. Each thought was worse than the last. At 9:30, the lights in Audrey's house came on. They had returned. I saw their silhouettes moving behind the curtains. They seemed to be arguing. The gestures were abrupt, agitated. I wondered what they could be talking about. About me? About my supposed surgery? About what they planned to do now that I was gone? At 10 o'clock, the lights went out. Everything was silent again. I looked at the clock. There were 2 hours and 15 minutes left until 12:15 a.m. Betty had told me to wait until that exact time. Why that specific time? What would happen then? Time dragged on like never before. Every minute seemed like an eternity. 11 o'clock at night, 11:30. My heart was beating faster and faster. 11:45. My hands were cold with sweat. Betty came up again and sat next to me in silence. She didn't say anything. She just waited with me. Her presence was comforting, but also unsettling. She knew something that I didn't know yet. 12 o'clock at night, midnight. The clock in Betty's living room chimed its solemn tolls. I held my breath. 12:05, 12:10. My eyes were fixed on my dark house. Nothing was moving. 12:14. Betty touched my shoulder softly. Almost, she whispered. And then it happened. Exactly at 12:15 in the morning, I saw a figure approaching my house from the side of the yard. He was carrying a small flashlight. It was Carl, my son-in-law. He walked carefully, looking everywhere, making sure no one saw him. He reached my front door. He took a key out of his pocket. My key. He opened the door with quick movements and went inside. The hallway lights came on. Seconds later, 2 more people arrived. A man with a briefcase and a young woman. The 3 of them entered my house as if they had every right in the world. I held my breath. What the heck was going on? Betty handed me some binoculars. Take these. You're going to need to see this in detail. I took them with trembling hands and looked through them. The image immediately zoomed in. I could perfectly see the inside of my living room through the window. Carl was pointing at the walls. The man with the briefcase was taking notes. The young woman was taking pictures with a professional camera. She photographed every corner, every piece of furniture, every detail. Then I saw them move towards the kitchen. More photos, more notes. The man took out a tape measure and began to measure the walls, the windows, the space between the furniture. What were they doing? Why were they measuring my house? They moved towards my bedroom. I saw them open my closet. They were looking through my clothes. The woman was taking pictures of my personal belongings, of the medicines on my nightstand, of the crucifix on the wall, of the family photographs. I felt a fury growing inside me. How dare they invade my privacy like that? Carl opened my desk drawer. He began to pull out documents. He showed them to the man with the briefcase. The man read them carefully and nodded. They put some papers in the briefcase. Were they stealing my documents? My property deed was there. My will, my bank accounts, everything. They stayed in my house for almost 1 hour. They checked absolutely everything. The attic, the basement, the garage. They took photos of every space, measurements of every room. When they finally left, it was almost 1:30 in the morning. I saw them talking outside for a few minutes. The man handed some papers to Carl. They shook hands. The woman hugged Carl. A hug that was too long, too close, too intimate. Something in that hug made me feel sick. Then they left. Carl turned off the lights in my house, locked up, and walked back to his house as if nothing had happened. I collapsed into the chair, shaking. Betty looked at me sadly. Now you understand why you needed to see it yourself. I nodded without being able to speak. Tears began to roll down my cheeks. What had I just witnessed? What were they planning? Who were those people? Betty sat beside me and took my hand. That's not all, Eleanor. There's more. Much more. I looked at her in horror. More? What could be worse than this? She sighed deeply. I've been watching them for weeks. This isn't the first time they've entered your house when you weren't here. They've come at least 5 times in the last month, always at midnight, always with different people. I felt the world crumble around me. Why didn't you tell me before? Betty shook her head. You needed to see it yourself. If I had told you, you wouldn't have believed me. You would have thought I was a paranoid old woman making up stories. But now you saw it. Now you know it's real. She was right. If she had told me this without me seeing it, I would have doubted. I would have defended my daughter. I would have justified Carl. But now there was no way to deny what I had just witnessed. My own family was betraying me in the vilest way. What do you think they're doing? I asked Betty in a broken voice. She looked at me seriously. I think they are planning to sell the house right from under you. Or take it from you in some legal way. The photos, the measurements, the documents, everything points to that. And that woman who came with them, I've seen her before. 2 weeks ago, she came alone with Carl. They entered your house and were there for hours. When they came out, they kissed. I felt like I couldn't breathe. They kissed. Betty nodded. Carl is cheating on your daughter. And I believe that woman is involved in this whole plan. I don't know exactly what they're plotting, but it's something big, Eleanor. Something that could leave you with nothing. I spent the rest of the night awake, looking out the window, processing what I had seen. My mind was working at full speed, trying to understand the magnitude of the betrayal. Carl, the man I had trusted like a son, was stealing from me. And Audrey, my own daughter, my only daughter. Did she know what Carl was doing? Was she an accomplice? The hug between Carl and that woman haunted me. Did Audrey know her husband was cheating on her? Or was she part of the deception too? I needed answers. I needed to know how far this nightmare went. The dawn came slowly, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet. I hadn't slept a minute. My eyes burned with fatigue, but my mind was more awake than ever. Betty came down to make coffee. The aroma wafted up to the room, but I couldn't move from the window. I needed to see what would happen in the light of day. I needed to understand Carl and Audrey's next move. At 7 o'clock in the morning, I saw Carl leave his house. He was wearing a suit, carrying his work briefcase. He acted completely normal, as if the night before he hadn't violated my home. He got into his car and left. Audrey came out half an hour later. She was also dressed for work. Before getting into her car, she looked towards my house. I could see her expression even from a distance. It wasn't concern. It was something else. Satisfaction? Anticipation? She left without another thought. Betty came up with a tray. Coffee, toast, fruit. You have to eat. Eleanor, you're going to need strength for what's coming. I forced myself to eat something, although every bite was hard to swallow. Betty, I need to know more. What else have you seen? Tell me everything. She sat across from me with a grave expression. About 2 months ago, I started noticing strange movements. At first, I thought it was you coming and going at different hours. But then I realized it wasn't you. It was Carl, using your key. He would come in when you weren't here. Sometimes alone, sometimes with that woman. Once he brought an older man who was carrying official documents. He looked like a lawyer or a notary. A notary, I repeated in horror. Why would they need a notary? Betty shook her head. I don't know for sure. But Eleanor, there's something else you need to know. 3 weeks ago, I saw something that made me suspect this was more serious than I thought. It was a Saturday afternoon. You had gone to the farmer's market. I saw Carl entering your house with a different woman, not the one you saw last night. This one was older, dressed formally, carrying a huge folder. They were inside for almost 2 hours. When they left, I overheard part of their conversation. They were in your yard, right below my window. The woman was telling Carl that they needed the medical certificates before proceeding, that without those documents the process could not move forward. My heart stopped. Medical certificates. What process? Betty looked at me with eyes full of compassion. I'm not sure, but I think they are trying to have you declared mentally incompetent. It's the only logical explanation. That's why Carl was constantly asking you if you forgot things, if you felt confused. He was building a case, gathering supposed evidence that you cannot take care of yourself. Fury exploded inside me. I stood up so abruptly that the chair almost fell over. Declare me incompetent? I am perfectly fine. I have never had memory problems. I have never been confused. It's an absolute lie. I know, Eleanor. I see you every day. I know you are perfectly lucid and capable. But they can fabricate evidence, get corrupt doctors to sign false papers. It's more common than you think. Families who want to take their parents' or grandparents' properties, they declare them incompetent, take legal control of their assets, and end up stripping them of everything. Betty's words hit me like punches. This was real. This was happening. My own daughter and son-in-law were planning to steal my entire life, my house, my autonomy, my dignity, everything. I have to do something, I said in a trembling voice. I can't just sit here watching them destroy me. Betty nodded. You're right, but you have to be smart. If you confront them now, they will deny everything. They will say you are paranoid, that you are confused, that you are imagining things. They will use your accusation as evidence of your supposed dementia. You need solid proof. You need legal help. And you need to act fast before they take the next step. She was right. Confronting them without preparation would be a fatal mistake. Do you know a trustworthy lawyer? I asked her. Betty smiled slightly. I know someone. Michael Harrison. He was my late husband's attorney. He's retired, but he still accepts special cases. He's honest, discreet, and very good. I can call him if you want. Please, do it. I need to talk to him as soon as possible. Betty went downstairs to make the call. I stayed by the window, looking at my house. My beautiful house that now felt like a tomb. I thought about all the years I lived there, the Christmases, the birthdays, the nights reading in the living room, the Sundays cooking barbecue ribs for Audrey when she was a little girl. That house was my complete history, and they were trying to snatch it away from me as if it were nothing, as if I were nothing. The tears rolled down my cheeks again, but this time they weren't just sadness. They were rage, determination. I wasn't going to let them do this to me, not without a fight. Betty returned half an hour later. Michael can see you this afternoon. I explained the general situation and he said it's urgent. The faster you act, the better. I nodded. Where are we meeting? At his office. It's 20 minutes from here. We can go in my car. No one will see us leave if we use the back door of my house. Perfect. Betty had thought of everything. I spent the next few hours trying to organize my thoughts. I made a list of everything I had seen, the dates I noticed strange behaviors, the objects that disappeared from my house, the interrupted conversations, the document about the nursing home, and of course what I witnessed the night before. The invasion of my home, the photos, the measurements, the stolen documents. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Betty and I left discreetly through her back door. Her car was parked in the garage, so no one saw us leave. During the ride, I remained silent, looking out the window, still processing the magnitude of the betrayal. Audrey. My little Audrey. The girl I carried in my arms. The one I taught to walk, to read, to cook. The one I comforted in every sadness. The one I celebrated in every achievement. That same girl was now conspiring to destroy me. The pain was physical. My chest hurt as if something inside me was breaking into pieces. We arrived at an old but elegant building in the center of the city. Michael's office was on the 3rd floor. We went up in the elevator in silence. Betty knocked on the door firmly. A man of approximately 70 years old opened it. He was tall, with completely white hair, penetrating eyes behind dark-rimmed glasses, and a serious but kind expression. "Betty, how long has it been?" he said with a deep voice. They hugged briefly. Then he looked at me. "You must be Eleanor. Please, come in." His office was spacious, full of law books, diplomas on the walls, family photographs. We sat across from his huge wooden desk. Michael leaned back in his chair and studied me for a moment. "Betty told me the basics, but I need you to tell me everything from the beginning. Every detail is important." I took a deep breath and began to speak. I told him about the changes in Audrey and Carl, about the strange visits, the missing objects, the insistent questions about my health, the nursing home document, my plan to fake the surgery, what I saw last night from Betty's window, the intruders measuring my house, photographing everything, stealing documents, the suspicious hug between Carl and that woman. Everything. Michael listened without interrupting, taking meticulous notes. When I finished, he was silent for a moment, thoughtful. Then he spoke in a firm voice. "Eleanor, what you are describing to me is a classic case of family fraud with the intention of stripping you of your assets. They are probably planning to do several things simultaneously." He leaned forward. "First, declare you legally incompetent through false medical certificates. Second, obtain power of attorney over your properties and finances. Third, sell your house quickly before you can react. And fourth, possibly commit you to a nursing home against your will, so you cannot interfere with the process. I've seen cases like this before. They are devastating and completely illegal, but unfortunately they are more common than people think." I felt the room spin around me. "Can they really do all that?" Michael nodded gravely. "If they have the right documents and the right contacts, yes, they can move you like a chess piece before you realize it. That's why you acted well by faking the surgery and observing. Now we know what you're facing, and we can prepare a defense." "What should I do?" I asked in a desperate voice. Michael interlaced his fingers on the desk. "First, I need access to all your original documents. Deeds, will, bank accounts, IDs, everything. Second, we're going to give you a complete medical evaluation with doctors I trust to prove that you are perfectly capable mentally and physically. Third, we are going to thoroughly investigate Carl's activities, his finances, his contacts, his movements. Fourth, we need to identify those people who entered your house last night. And fifth, we are going to prepare a legal trap to catch them red-handed. A trap? I asked, staring at Michael. He nodded with a calculating expression. Exactly. We can't simply accuse them without irrefutable proof that a judge cannot ignore. We need to catch them in the act. Document their actions, record conversation if possible, get irrefutable evidence of their criminal intentions. I leaned back in the chair, feeling the weight of all this on my shoulders. How much time do we have? Michael frowned. That is the critical question. From what you describe, they are already in an advanced phase. The measurements, the photographs, the document theft. I'd say they have an interested buyer and are preparing the paperwork to formalize the sale. Probably a matter of weeks, perhaps days. Betty leaned forward. Michael, what about the documents Carl stole from Eleanor's house? Can they use them to forge signatures? Michael nodded gravely. They can, and they probably will. With modern technology, forging signatures is relatively simple if you have original samples. That's why it's crucial for Eleanor to regain control of her documents immediately and protect them legally. I straightened up in the chair. I have a safe in my house. One that I installed years ago when my husband died. No one knows about it except me. It's hidden behind a false panel in my bedroom closet. That's where I keep my most important documents. Original deeds, my will, certificates, everything. Michael's eyes lit up. Perfect. That gives us a huge advantage. They probably believe they have all your documents, but in reality, they only have copies or secondary papers. I nodded. Exactly. I was always careful with that. My husband taught me to protect important documents. He said that in this world, you can't even trust your shadow. A bitter irony, considering I couldn't even trust my own daughter now. Michael took more notes. Good. This is what we will do. Tonight, while they sleep, you will enter your house with my assistant and a trusted locksmith. We will change all the locks. We will recover your documents from the safe. We will install hidden security cameras in strategic points. That way we can record any future attempt at invasion. Cameras? The idea surprised me. Yes, small, invisible, with real-time transmission to your phone and mine. If they try to enter again, we will have it all recorded. Invaluable evidence for the case. I took a deep breath, feeling a mix of fear and determination. It's all right. Let's do it. Michael continued. Early tomorrow you will go to my trusted doctor, Dr. Reynolds. He will perform a complete cognitive evaluation. Memory tests, logical reasoning exercises, decision-making ability, everything officially documented. That will destroy any attempt to declare you incompetent. You're in. And then? Then comes the difficult part. You need to return to your normal life. Pretend that the surgery went well and that you are recovering. Act as if you know nothing. Meanwhile, we will investigate silently. We will track Carl's movements. We will identify his accomplices. We will find out exactly what they are planning. And when we have everything documented, we will confront them legally with authorities present. The idea of having to pretend normalcy in front of the people who were betraying me made my stomach churn. I don't know if I can act like nothing is wrong in front of them. Every time I see Audrey, I feel my heart break again. Michael looked at me with compassion. I know. It's the most painful part of all this, but it is necessary. If they suspect that you know something, they will accelerate their plans or modify them. They could sell the house to a trusted third party to cover their tracks. They could destroy evidence. We need them to believe that everything is going according to their plan while we build the case against them. Betty took my hand. You're strong, Eleanor. You can do this. Think about your house, your life, your dignity. All that is worth fighting for. She was right. I closed my eyes for a moment, gathering strength. When I opened them, I had made my decision. It's all right. I will do whatever is necessary. Michael smiled for the first time. Excellent. Now, let's talk about costs. My fees would normally be $5,000 for a case like this, but you are Betty's friend, and I deeply despise it when families take advantage of their elders. I will charge you $2,500, half now, half when we win the case. I nodded. I can pay it. I have savings. Perfect. Then let's get started. Tonight at 2 o'clock in the morning, my assistant Louis will come to pick you up at Betty's house. You will go to your house, change the locks, install the cameras, and recover your documents. Understood. Understood. Good. Tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning, I will wait for you with Dr. Reynolds at his office. Betty has the address. And the day after tomorrow, you will officially return home, recovered from your surgery. We left Michael's office with a clear plan. During the drive back, Betty drove in silence while I looked out the window, lost in my thoughts. I thought about Audrey when she was a little girl, about her laughter, about how she ran to me every time I came home from school, about the nights we spent together when she was sick, me taking care of her, stroking her hair. At what moment was all that lost? At what moment did I stop being her mother to become an obstacle? At what moment did my life stop mattering to her? You're thinking about her, Betty said softly. I nodded without being able to speak. I know. It's natural. She's your daughter. But Eleanor, you need to understand something. The Audrey who is doing this is no longer the girl you raised. Something changed in her. Whether it's because of Carl's influence, financial problems, ambition, or weakness. But the person conspiring to rob you is not the daughter you knew. Her words hurt because they were true. The Audrey I knew would never have done something like that. She would never have betrayed me this way. Something had changed profoundly in her, and I didn't know if I could ever forgive her. We arrived back at Betty's house around 6 o'clock in the evening. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. From the second-floor window, I saw the lights turn on in Audrey's house. I saw her silhouette moving inside. Preparing dinner, probably. Acting as if she were a normal person, as if she weren't planning to destroy her own mother. Betty's phone rang. It was Michael. Betty? Put me on speaker. I need Eleanor to hear this. Betty activated the speaker. We're here, Michael. The lawyer's voice sounded urgent. Eleanor, my contacts have already started investigating. I have preliminary information that you need to know now. My heart raced. What did you find out? Carl has enormous debts. More than $200,000 between credit cards, personal loans, and a commercial loan he took out for a business that failed 2 years ago. He is on the verge of bankruptcy. Creditors are pressuring him. He has 2 months to pay or he will face lawsuits. I felt my stomach churn. So he needs my house to pay his debts. Exactly. Your property is worth approximately $450,000 according to the current market. With that money, he can pay all his debts and still have money left over. It is the perfect motive for what he is doing. And Audrey? She knows about the debts. Michael paused. I still don't know that for sure. But based on how they are acting together, I assume so. They are probably desperate. Desperation makes people make terrible decisions. And there is something else. His tone became even more serious. Tell me. The woman you saw hugging Carl last night. We've already identified her. Her name is Pamela Morris. She is a real estate agent, but she has a record. 5 years ago, she was involved in a similar case. She helped a family illegally sell an elderly man's property. The case was settled out of court, but it's on her records. She is a professional in this type of fraud. The name Pamela Morris was etched in my mind like a brand of fire. A woman with experience in stealing from the elderly, a fraud professional, and Carl had brought her directly into my house. "How did you find her so quickly?" I asked Michael. "I have contacts everywhere. Private investigators, former police officers, people who owe me favors. When you dedicate yourself to this for 40 years, you build a network. Pamela Morris was not difficult to track down. She has a public profile as a real estate agent, but the interesting thing is what she doesn't publicly show." He paused. "We found bank transfers. Carl has paid her $3,000 in the last 2 months. Payments labeled as consulting, but we both know it's much more than that." Betty and I looked at each other. $3,000. Carl was paying this woman to help him rob me. "And the man who was with them last night?" I asked. "We're still working on that, but based on the description you gave, he's probably an appraiser or a potential buyer. Someone interested in acquiring the property quickly without asking too many questions." Michael took a deep breath. "Eleanor, this is more serious than I initially thought. They are not just planning to steal from you. The operation is already underway. Money is already moving. There are already buyers. This means we must act with extreme speed." I felt a chill run down my spine. "How fast?" "Louis will pick you up at 1 o'clock in the morning, not 2 o'clock as I said before. Every hour counts. We need to secure your house tonight. Tomorrow morning, in addition to seeing Dr. Reynolds, we will go to the bank together. You will temporarily freeze all your accounts and protect them with new passwords that only you and I will know. We will also check if there have been any suspicious movements." My mind was working at 1,000 revolutions per hour. "Do you think they have already tried to access my accounts?" "It's possible. With the copies of your documents they stole, they could attempt impersonations. Better safe than sorry." We hung up the call. Betty brought me chamomile tea. "You need to rest a little before midnight," she told me firmly. "I haven't slept since yesterday." "I know. That's why you need at least 2 or 3 hours of sleep. You are going to need to be alert tonight." She was right. I lay down on Betty's living room sofa, but my mind wouldn't stop racing. I thought about Carl, going through my things, about Pamela Morris, photographing my life, about Audrey, allowing all this. How had it gotten to this point? At what moment did my family become my enemies? I must have fallen asleep because Betty woke me up gently. "Eleanor, it's midnight. Louis will arrive in 1 hour." I sat up, disoriented for a moment. The reality hit me like ice water. Tonight, I would take back my house. I washed my face, combed my hair, and changed into dark clothes, as Michael had suggested. Black pants, dark grey sweater, comfortable shoes. It looked like I was preparing for a robbery, when in reality I was reclaiming what was mine. The irony was bitter. At 12:50, a car parked discreetly in front of Betty's house. A young man got out. Short hair, athletic build, serious expression. Betty opened the door. "Louis, come in." He quickly entered. He looked at me and extended his hand. "Eleanor, I'm Louis Harrison, Michael's assistant. I worked 5 years as a locksmith before studying law. Tonight we are taking back your house." His confidence calmed me down a little. "Did you bring everything?" He nodded. "New locks, security cameras, tools, everything. He looked at his watch. It's 12:55. Your daughter's house is dark. We will wait until 1:10 to make sure they are sound asleep. Then we move. The minutes passed with torturous slowness. Finally, Louis stood up. It's time. We left through Betty's back door. The night was dark, moonless, perfect for not being seen. We walked quickly toward my house. Louis carried a large backpack. We reached my front door. I took out my key with trembling hands. I inserted it into the lock. It turned smoothly. The door opened. Entering my own house feeling like an intruder was surreal. Louis closed the door behind us and turned on a small flashlight. First the cameras, he whispered. He worked with impressive efficiency. He installed a tiny camera in the living room, hidden inside a fake smoke detector. Another in the kitchen, inside the wall clock. A third in my bedroom, hidden in a picture frame. These cameras transmit real-time video, he explained in a low voice. They have motion sensors. If someone enters, you will receive an immediate alert on your phone. Look. He showed me an application on his cell phone. I could see the 3 rooms simultaneously. The image was surprisingly clear, even in the dark. Incredible, I whispered. Now the locks. Louis took tools from his backpack. In less than 15 minutes, he had changed the lock on the front door, then the one on the back door, and finally the one on the garage. Here are the new keys. There are 4 sets. One for you, one for Michael, one for Betty, and one backup that you will keep in a safe place. I took them, feeling their weight in my hand. Now Carl can't get in. Exactly. And if he tries to force entry, it will be recorded. Louis looked around. Where is the safe? I guided him to my bedroom. I opened the closet. I moved the clothes aside. I pressed a panel that appeared to be part of the back wall. It slid open, revealing a built-in safe. I turned the combination. Click, click, click. The door opened. Inside were all my important documents. The original house deed, my will, birth certificates, marriage certificate, my husband's death certificate, bank statements, insurance policies, everything perfectly organized in folders. Louis whistled softly. Excellent. Michael was right. They don't have access to any of this. I took everything out and put it in a bag that Louis had brought. These documents will go directly to the security vault at Michael's firm. They will be completely protected. I nodded, feeling a huge relief. At least this was safe. Is there anything else you need from here? Louis asked me. I looked around my room. My family photographs, my jewelry, some sentimental objects. Give me a minute. I took the most important photographs, one from my wedding, another of Audrey when she was a baby, one of my parents. I put them in the bag. I also took the jewelry my husband had given me over the years. They weren't extremely valuable in monetary terms, but they were priceless to me. The engagement ring, the earrings from our 10th anniversary, the bracelet he gave me when Audrey was born. Everything went into the bag. Louis watched in silence. Ready. I took a deep breath, looking at my room one last time. Yes, let's go. We left the house silently. Louis tested the new locks. They worked perfectly. We returned to Betty's house by the same route. It was 2:30 in the morning. The entire operation had taken less than 2 hours. Betty was waiting for us with hot coffee. Louis put the bag with my documents on the table. Perfect. Michael will review all this first thing tomorrow. Eleanor, get some rest. I'll pick you up at 8 o'clock to go to Dr. Reynolds' office. He left, leaving me exhausted but strangely hopeful. At least I had regained some control. My documents were safe. My house was protected. I was no longer completely defenseless. Betty looked at me with pride. You did well, Eleanor. Very well. I collapsed onto the sofa, feeling the weight of the exhaustion. There's still a long way to go, right? She nodded. Yes. But you took the first step, the most important one. Now you have a defense. Now you can fight. I slept a few restless hours. I dreamed of Audrey. In the dream, she was a little girl again. We played in the yard. We laughed. We were happy. Then she suddenly grew up. She became an adult. She looked at me with cold eyes and said, I don't need you anymore, Mum. I woke up with tears in my eyes. Betty was already awake, preparing breakfast. Good morning. Louis will arrive in half an hour. I forced myself to eat something. Cereal with orange juice. I needed strength for what was coming. At 8 o'clock sharp, Louis knocked on the door. Ready to see Dr. Reynolds? I nodded. Ready. Dr. Reynolds' office was in a modern medical building, clean waiting room, friendly receptionist. We were immediately ushered in. The doctor was a man in his 60s, with a kind but professional expression. Eleanor, Michael explained the situation to me. We are going to do a complete cognitive evaluation. Don't worry. They are just tests to officially document that you are in perfect mental condition. The next 2 hours were intense. Memory tests, logical reasoning exercises, questions about temporal and spatial orientation, evaluation of decision-making ability. The doctor was meticulous, noting every answer. In the end, he looked at me with a smile. Eleanor, your results are excellent. Better than many people 20 years younger. There is absolutely no evidence of cognitive decline, dementia, or mental incapacity of any kind. I will prepare a detailed certified report. This will be invaluable if anyone tries to declare you incompetent. I felt enormous relief. Thank you, Doctor. It's a pleasure to help. I hate it when families try to take advantage of their elders. I'm glad you're fighting. We left Dr. Reynolds' office with the sealed and certified medical report. Louis carefully put it in his briefcase. This document is gold. Eleanor, it destroys any argument of incapacity they try to use against you. I nodded, feeling that I finally had weapons to defend myself. Now to the bank, Louis said, as he drove through the downtown streets. We arrived at the bank where I had had my accounts for more than 30 years. We asked to speak to the manager. Mr. Jenkins knew me well. When I explained that I needed to review recent movements and protect my accounts, his expression became serious. Let me check your history. His fingers flew over the keyboard. Suddenly he frowned. Eleanor, there was an attempted access to your account 4 days ago. Someone called on the phone providing your personal details and requesting information about your balances. I felt my heart stop. What information did they give? Social security number, date of birth, address. Everything correct. But since we have security protocols, we asked for a security word that you established years ago. The person could not provide it, so we denied the information. Louis leaned forward. Did they register the number they called from? The manager checked. Yes, here it is. He wrote the number on a piece of paper. Louis immediately photographed it with his phone. Mr. Jenkins, we need to change all the passwords and security words for Mrs. Eleanor's accounts. Also set up alerts for any unusual movement. Of course, we will do everything immediately. We spent the next hour reconfiguring the security of my accounts. New passwords, new security questions, automatic alerts for any transaction over $100, two-step authorization for any change. Your accounts are now completely armored, Mr. Jenkins said. No one can access them without your physical presence and multiple verifications. I signed all the necessary documents. Thank you for your help. It is my duty to protect our clients. If anyone tries anything again, I will contact you immediately. We left the bank around noon. Louis took me back to Betty's house. Michael wants to see you this afternoon at 4 o'clock. He says he has more information. I spent the rest of the day resting, trying to regain strength. But my mind wouldn't stop working. I thought about that attempted access to my accounts. Had it been Carl, Audrey, Pamela Morris? The betrayal felt deeper with each revelation. At 3:30, Betty helped me get ready. You need to look strong, she said as she combed my hair. Michael will see that you are not a defenseless victim. You are a fighter. Her words encouraged me. Louis arrived on time. The ride to Michael's office was silent. I looked out the window, watching the city that had been my home all my life. I wondered how many people like me were being betrayed by their own families right now. How many elderly people were losing everything without even knowing it? The injustice filled me with fury. We arrived at the office. Michael was waiting for us with a grave expression. On his desk were folders, photographs, documents. Eleanor, sit down. I have a lot to tell you. I sat down, mentally preparing myself. Tell me everything. Michael opened a folder. First, we identified the man who was with Carl and Pamela the other night. His name is Jeff Soto. He's a real estate investor. He buys cheap properties, remodels them, and resells them. He has a reputation for not asking too many questions about the origin of the properties he acquires. Perfect for what Carl needs. He showed a photograph. It was the same man I had seen measuring my house. Second, we tracked the phone number from which they tried to access your bank account. It is a prepaid phone bought 2 months ago, but we triangulated the location of the call. It was made from your daughter's house. I closed my eyes, feeling a pang of pain. So it had been from their house. Audrey was definitely involved. There was no way to deny it. Michael continued. Third, we found something very interesting. Carl and Pamela do not just have a professional relationship. They have been having an affair for at least 6 months. I have photographs. He opened another folder. There were photos of Carl and Pamela together, entering hotels, kissing in parking lots, hugging in restaurants. My stomach turned. Does Audrey know? I asked in a voice barely audible. Michael sighed. That is the most complicated thing. According to our investigation, yes. She knows and she allows it. How can you be sure? Louis intervened. I followed your daughter for 2 days. Yesterday I saw her meet Pamela at a coffee shop. They talked for over an hour. The conversation seemed tense but not hostile. It was not the behavior of a wife confronting her husband's mistress. It was the behavior of 2 partners discussing business. The words hit me like punches. Audrey knew Carl was cheating on her and she didn't care. Or she cared less than the money they would get from my house. Michael continued. Fourth, and this is crucial, we found the documents they are preparing to declare you incompetent. Pamela has contacts with a corrupt doctor, Dr. Vance. For $3,000, he signs false certificates of senile dementia. He showed copies of documents, medical certificates with my name, invented diagnoses, recommendations for immediate institutionalization, all false, all prepared to destroy my life. How did you get these copies? Michael smiled slightly. I have my methods. Let's just say Dr. Vance's assistant has a conscience and is bothered by what his boss is doing. Fifth, Carl already has a buyer. Jeff Soto is ready to pay $350,000 for your house. $100,000 less than the real value, but it's quick cash with no questions asked. The deal is practically closed. They are only waiting to have legal power over your property. How much time do we have? I asked in a trembling voice. According to my sources, they plan to make their move next week. They are going to present the false medical certificates to a judge. They will request an emergency guardianship, alleging that you are a danger to yourself. With those papers, they can obtain a temporary order in 24 hours. Once they have that order, they will commit you to a residence, take legal control of your assets, and sell the house before you can react. The rooms seemed to spin around me. 1 week. We only have 1 week. Michael nodded. That's why we must act now. But we have advantages. Your documents are protected. Your accounts are armored. Your medical evaluation proves your capacity. And we have evidence of their conspiracy. What do we do then? Michael leaned back in his chair. Here comes the delicate part. Tomorrow you will return to your house. Officially recovered from your surgery. You will act completely normal. They will come to visit you. To make sure that everything is going according to their plan, you will pretend that you know nothing. Meanwhile, I will file a formal complaint with the prosecutor with all the evidence we have collected. Fraud, forgery of documents, attempted theft, conspiracy. Everything. He leaned forward. Simultaneously, I will request a protection order and a restraining order against Carl, Audrey, Pamela, and anyone else involved, prohibiting them from approaching you or your property. And then we wait for them to make their final mistake. When they try to present the false documents to the judge, we will be waiting for them. With prosecutors, with the police, with the full force of the law, we will catch them in the act of committing formal fraud. That is a serious crime with severe criminal consequences, Louis added. The cameras in your house are also crucial. If they try to enter again, it will be recorded. More invaluable evidence for the case. Michael closed his folders. Eleanor, this is going to be painful. Seeing your daughter arrested will not be easy, but it is necessary. Not only to protect you, but so that they face the consequences of their actions. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of all this. I know. A few days ago I would have said that I could never do this, that I could never report my own daughter. But after seeing everything they have done, everything they plan to do, she is no longer my little Audrey. She is a stranger who is willing to destroy me for money. Michael looked at me with respect. That clarity is important. It will keep you strong for what's coming. I stood up. Then let's do it. Tomorrow I go back to my house. And let the countdown begin. I left that office feeling a mixture of terror and determination. Tomorrow I would have to see the people who betrayed me and pretend that I knew nothing. I would have to hug them, smile at them, act as if everything was fine, while the clock advanced towards their inevitable destruction. Justice would come. I just needed to be strong enough to get to that moment. The next morning dawned grey and cold. I woke up at Betty's house, feeling the weight of what I had to do. Today I would return to my home. Today I would face my daughter and my son-in-law, knowing the whole truth, but feigning total ignorance. Betty prepared a hearty breakfast for me. You need strength for what's coming, she said, as she placed scrambled eggs in front of me. I ate mechanically, without tasting anything. My stomach was closed off by anxiety. At 9 o'clock in the morning, Louis arrived to take me. Michael already presented all the documentation to the prosecutor. The formal investigation began this morning. He also processed the protection orders. They will be ready in 48 hours. I nodded. And the cameras? Working perfectly. Look. He showed me his phone. I could see the inside of my house in real time. Everything was exactly as we had left it. Louis drove me to my house. We stopped the car in front of the entrance. I took several deep breaths before getting out. "You're going to be okay," Louis told me. "Remember, act normal. If you need anything, just call me. I'll be monitoring the cameras constantly." I got out of the car with my small suitcase, the same one I had packed when I pretended to go to the hospital. Louis waited until I opened the door with my new key. I went in. The house smelled stale, as if it had been empty for weeks when it had only been days. I closed the door behind me and stood still for a moment. I was back in my home, but it no longer felt safe. It felt like a battlefield. I slowly unpacked. I put away my clothes. I made coffee. I opened the windows to air it out. I tried to make everything look normal. I knew that Audrey and Carl would be watching. They surely had already seen my car. At any moment they would come to visit me to make sure their plan was still on track. I wasn't wrong. At 11 o'clock in the morning, they knocked on the door. My heart began to beat violently. I took a deep breath, forced a smile onto my face, and opened it. It was Audrey. "Mom!" she exclaimed with feigned concern. "We just saw you arrive. How are you? How did the surgery go?" She hugged me. I had to use all my willpower not to pull away in disgust. Her arms felt like a snake coiling around me. "I'm fine, honey," I said in a weak voice, as if I had really been sick. "It was complicated, but the doctors say I will recover completely." I let her in. Carl appeared behind her with his fake smile and his calculating eyes. "Eleanor, what a joy to see you back." We were so worried. Liar, hypocrite, thief. The words screamed in my mind, but I kept my expression calm. "Thank you, Carl. It's good to be home." I sat on the sofa, acting more tired than I really was. Audrey sat next to me, taking my hand. "Mum, you look exhausted. Are you sure you should be alone? Maybe you should stay with us for a few days while you recover." There it was. The first attempt. They wanted to keep me in their house, where they could control me better. "No, honey. I'm fine here. The doctors said that normal routine will help me recover faster." I saw a flash of frustration in her eyes, but she quickly hid it. "It's all right. But I'm going to come visit you every day. And anything you need, you call me." Carl walked around the room, subtly observing everything. Was he looking for signs of the cameras, or checking that everything was as they had left it? "Eleanor, do you need help with anything? Medical insurance papers? Hospital bills?" he asked casually. There was the trap. Did they want access to more documents? "No, thank you, Carl. I already took care of everything at the hospital. They have my insurance card on file," Audrey insisted. "Mum, let us help you. I know these things can be confusing, especially after surgery. Your mind must be tired." Again, insinuating that I was not mentally capable, building their narrative of incapacity. "My mind is perfectly fine, Audrey," I said firmly. "I just need physical rest." I saw them exchange glances. They were frustrated. Their plan depended on me appearing confused, weak, incapable. But I was proving the opposite. They stayed for one more hour, asking subtle questions, trying to detect any changes in the house, looking for opportunities to advance their agenda. Finally, they left, promising to return the next day. The moment they closed the door, I collapsed onto the sofa, shaking. It had been harder than I imagined. Seeing my daughter act with such cynicism, with such falsehood, looking into her eyes, knowing that she planned to destroy me. The phone rang. It was Louis. "We saw everything through the cameras." "You did it perfectly, Eleanor. You acted exactly as you should have." His voice gave me strength. "It was horrible. I admitted. I know, but you did it. Now we know they are going to go ahead with their plan. That's good for us. We hung up. I spent the rest of the day in constant tension, jumping at every noise, checking the windows, making sure the doors were locked with the new locks. The next day, as promised, Audrey returned, this time alone. "Mum, I need to talk to you," she said with a serious expression. My heart raced. "What's wrong, honey?" She sat across from me. "I've been thinking. This house is too big for you. Maintaining it must be exhausting. And now with your delicate health." Here it came, the speech they had prepared. "My health is fine, Audrey." "Mum, you just got out of serious surgery. And let's be honest, you're not getting any younger. This house has stairs, a yard to maintain, constant repairs. Wouldn't something smaller, more manageable be better?" I pretended to consider her words. "What do you suggest?" Her eyes shone with barely contained anticipation. "There are wonderful residences for seniors, places where you don't have to worry about anything. Prepared meals, cleaning included, nurses available 24 hours. And you could sell this house. The money would give you financial security for the rest of your life." Every word was like a knife in my heart, but I kept my face neutral. "I don't know, Audrey. This house holds a lot of memories." "I know, Mum, but the memories are here," she pointed to her heart. "Not in the walls. Think about it. No worries, no responsibilities, just enjoying your golden years." Golden years? What a cruel euphemism for prison. "I'll think about it," I finally said. She smiled broadly. "Perfect. In fact, I know a beautiful place. Would you like to visit it with me tomorrow? Just to see. No commitment." They were accelerating the plan. "I feel very tired tomorrow still. Maybe next week." I saw disappointment cross her face. "It's all right, but don't postpone it too long, Mum. It's important to think about your future." After she left, I immediately called Michael. They just made their move. Audrey pressured me directly about selling the house and committing me to a residence. "Perfect," Michael said. "They are desperate. That means they will probably move their final pieces this week. The protection orders will be ready tomorrow. And the prosecutor already has enough evidence to proceed. We are just waiting for them to try to present the false documents to the judge." "How much more do I have to endure this?" I asked in a broken voice. "Little. Very little. Hold on just a few more days." That night I barely slept. Every sound startled me. I checked the cameras constantly on my phone. I saw my empty house on the small screens, but I felt as if I was surrounded by invisible enemies. On the third day, Carl arrived with papers. "Eleanor, I brought some documents for you to review. Things related to your health, your house, your finances. It's important to have everything in order." I pretended to look at them with confusion. "There are a lot of numbers here, Carl. I don't really understand all this." I saw satisfaction on his face. "Don't worry, I can help you. In fact, if you give me permission, I can take care of all this for you so you don't have to stress yourself out." There it was, the direct attempt to gain power over my documents. "Let me think about it," I said. "I need to rest now. My head is a little fuzzy." I was playing their game. I was acting exactly as they wanted me to act. Carl left, leaving the papers. As soon as the door closed, I photographed them and sent them to Michael. 2 hours later, Michael called, furious. "Eleanor, these documents are fake. They are powers of attorney supposedly signed by you, but the signature is forged. He brought them for you to actually sign, thus validating the fraudulent documents he already has. It is a legal trap." What do I do? Don't sign anything. Absolutely nothing. Under any circumstances. I won't. Good. Because tomorrow everything ends. The prosecutor will file the formal charges tomorrow at noon. The arrest warrants will be ready. And when Carl and Audrey arrive at your house to pressure you to sign, we will be waiting for them. The morning of the final day dawned with a strange silence, as if the entire city was holding its breath, waiting for what was coming. I got up early, showered, and dressed carefully. I wanted to look dignified for what was about to happen. Michael had called me at 7 o'clock. Eleanor, everything is ready. The detectives will arrive at your house at 11 o'clock. Carl and Audrey are scheduled to appear before the judge at 1 o'clock in the afternoon with the fake documents. But they will never make it to that appointment. We will arrest them at your house when they try to pressure you to sign. My heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. Are you sure they will come? Completely. We have Carl's line tapped. This morning he called Pamela confirming that he would get your final signature today. They are desperate. It's their last day before the creditors initiate legal proceedings against them. I hung up and sat down to wait. The minutes passed with torturous slowness. At 10 o'clock, Betty called. Eleanor, how are you? Scared, I admitted, but ready. Today everything ends. You are the bravest woman I know. I'll be thinking of you. At 10:30, two discreet cars parked on the street. 4 people got out dressed casually. Undercover detectives. They knocked on my door. I opened it quickly. Mrs. Eleanor, I am Detective Miller. We have come to witness what is about to happen. We need everything to be completely legal. They entered and positioned themselves strategically. 2 in the kitchen, hidden behind the door. 2 in the hallway that led to the bedrooms. Invisible, but present. Act normally, Detective Miller instructed me. When they arrive, let them talk. Let them pressure you. Let them show their intentions. We will record everything. At 11:15, I heard Carl's car park. My stomach twisted. They knocked on the door. I took a deep breath and opened it. Audrey and Carl entered with smiles that didn't reach their eyes. Mum, good morning. How did you sleep? Audrey asked, kissing my cheek. The kiss felt like venom on my skin. Good, honey. Carl carried his briefcase. Eleanor, we brought the papers we left the other day. It's important that we sign them today. We have an appointment with the notary at 2 o'clock. They sat down in the living room. Carl opened the briefcase and took out several documents. Look, everything is clearly explained here. This paper gives you peace of mind. It authorizes us to help you with your finances while you recover. This other one is for the sale of the house. And this last one is for your voluntary admission to the residence we visited. A lie. I had never visited any residence. I don't know, Carl. It's too much to process, I said in a trembling voice, feigning confusion. Audrey took my hand. Mum, trust us. We are your family. We only want what's best for you. Sign here and here and here. She pointed to dotted lines on each document. Everything will be fine. You won't have to worry about anything anymore. Carl added pressure. Eleanor, we need to do this today. The notary is only available this afternoon. If we don't sign now, we will lose the opportunity. And honestly, with your state of health, we can't risk waiting any longer. My state of health is fine, I said weakly. Mum, you just had serious surgery, Audrey insisted. And we have noticed that you are more forgetful, more confused. It's normal at your age. That's why you need help. Our help. Carl put a pen in my hand. Sign here, Eleanor. Do it for your own good. His hand squeezed mine tightly. Too much strength. It was physical intimidation disguised as help. "I'm not sure," I whispered. "Mum, please." Audrey's voice rose in tone. "We're trying to help you. Why are you making it so difficult?" Carl leaned close to me. "Eleanor, listen carefully. You are going to sign these papers now. If you don't, we will have to take more drastic measures. We have medical certificates that prove that you are not mentally capable. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. You decide." There it was, the direct threat. The mask had completely fallen. "Are you threatening me, Carl?" I asked with a firmer voice. "I'm being realistic. This house is going to be sold. You are going to go to that residence, and we are going to manage your money. That is going to happen one way or another. I'm giving you the option of doing it with dignity, by voluntarily signing. Or we can go to court where a judge will declare you incompetent and give us total control. Which do you prefer?" Audrey remained silent, looking at the floor, a silent accomplice to everything. "Look at this," Carl said, taking out more papers. "These are the medical certificates from Dr. Vance. They clearly state that you suffer from advanced dementia, that you represent a danger to yourself. With these documents, the judge will give us guardianship in less than 24 hours. "Those documents are false," I said clearly. "I have never seen Dr. Vance in my life." Carl laughed coldly. "And who is going to believe you? A confused old woman against a certified doctor? Please, Eleanor, don't be naive." He stood up, looming over me threateningly. "Sign. Now." At that moment, Detective Miller came out of the kitchen. "I think we've heard enough." Carl and Audrey froze. Their faces went from arrogance to terror in seconds. "Who the hell are you?" Carl yelled. The other 3 detectives came out of their hiding places. "Detective Miller, Fraud Division." "Carl Reed, Audrey Reed, you are under arrest for attempted fraud, forgery of documents, coercion, conspiracy to commit theft, and elder abuse." Chaos erupted. Carl tried to run towards the door, but 2 detectives intercepted him. They threw him to the floor, handcuffing him while he shouted obscenities. Audrey remained paralyzed, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Mum, I didn't want to. Carl forced me." Lies until the end. "Audrey Reed, you have the right to remain silent." A detective began to read her rights while handcuffing her. "Mum, please, forgive me. I didn't know we would go this far, I swear." I looked her in the eyes. "You knew exactly what you were doing, and you did it anyway." At that moment, more officers entered through the door. Michael arrived behind them. "Eleanor, are you okay?" I nodded, unable to speak. Seeing my daughter handcuffed tore me apart inside despite everything. They took Carl and Audrey out of my house. Carl continued to shout threats. Audrey was crying hysterically. The neighbors had come out to see the spectacle. Betty was at her door with tears in her eyes, but an expression of relief on her face. Michael closed the door, leaving us alone. "It's over, Eleanor. They can't hurt you anymore." I collapsed onto the sofa, trembling uncontrollably. The tears I had been holding back for days finally burst forth. I cried for the daughter I had lost, for the family I would never have again, for the innocence and trust they had stolen from me. Michael sat beside me in silence, letting me cry everything I needed to. After several minutes, I managed to calm down. "What happens now?" I asked in a hoarse voice. "Now they face serious criminal charges: fraud, forgery, attempted theft. Each charge carries between 3 and 10 years in prison. With all the evidence we have, there is no way for them to escape." Pamela Morris and Dr. Vance are also being arrested at this moment. Jeff Soto is being interrogated. I processed the information slowly. Audrey will go to prison. It is very likely, unless she reaches an agreement with the prosecutor, yes. I closed my eyes. My daughter in prison. The image shattered me. You did the right thing, Eleanor, Michael said firmly. What they did to you is unforgivable. They not only tried to rob you, they tried to take away your dignity, your autonomy, your very humanity. They were going to lock you up in an institution where you probably would have died alone and forgotten while they spent your money. He was right. I knew it rationally, but the heart does not understand logic. When can I testify? In a few weeks. The prosecutor will prepare the case. You will need to be strong and tell everything before the judge. I nodded. I will do it. I will testify against them. Not for revenge, but for justice, so that no one else has to go through this. Michael smiled sadly. You are an extraordinary woman, Eleanor. I spent the rest of the day in a fog of contradictory emotions. Relief that everything was over. Pain for the loss of my family. Rage over the betrayal. Sadness for what could have been and never would be. Betty came that night with hot soup and silent companionship. You don't have to talk, she told me. I'm just here. Her presence was comforting. I realized that I had found more family in this neighbor than in my own blood. The following weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings, statements to the prosecutor, meetings with lawyers, preparation of testimony. Michael guided me through every step with infinite patience. Carl and Audrey were released on bail, but the restraining orders prohibited them from approaching me or my property. Pamela Morris and Dr. Vance also faced charges. Jeff Soto cooperated with the authorities in exchange for immunity, revealing that there were 3 other similar cases in which Pamela had been involved. The investigation expanded, uncovering an entire network of fraud against the elderly. The day of the trial arrived 3 months later. I woke up feeling the weight of what I was about to do. I would testify against my own daughter in front of a courtroom full of strangers. Michael arrived early to pick me up. Ready? He asked gently. As ready as I can be, I replied. Betty insisted on accompanying me. You won't face this alone, she said, taking my hand. The courtroom was intimidating, cold, impersonal, full of unfamiliar faces. I saw Audrey sitting next to her defense attorney. She looked gaunt, with deep dark circles under her eyes, her hair dull. When our eyes met, she immediately looked down. Carl was at another table, with a hard, defiant expression. He didn't show an ounce of remorse. The judge, a man in his 60s with a severe expression, called the court to order. The prosecutor presented the case meticulously. He showed the photographs of Carl and the accomplices entering my house. He presented the falsified documents. He played the recordings of the threats. Every piece of evidence was a hammer blow to the coffin of their defense. Then they called me to the stand. I walked with trembling legs, aware of all the eyes on me. I put my hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. And that's exactly what I did. I told the whole story from the beginning. The strange behaviors. My decision to fake the surgery. What I witnessed from Betty's window. The plan to declare me incompetent. Carl's threats. Everything. My voice broke several times, especially when I spoke about Audrey. About how I had raised her alone after my husband's death. About all the love and sacrifice I invested in giving her a good life. About how she repaid me with betrayal. Audrey's defense attorney tried to discredit my testimony during cross-examination. Mrs. Eleanor, isn't it true that at your age memory can fail? My memory is perfect, I replied firmly. I have certified medical evaluations that prove it. It is possible that you misinterpreted your daughter's intentions. I misinterpreted nothing. The recordings show exactly what they intended to do. Carl's lawyer was more aggressive. Mrs. Eleanor, isn't it true that you refused to consider reasonable options for your care? I don't need care. I am perfectly capable of taking care of myself. But didn't your family genuinely worry about your well-being? If they were worried about my well-being, they wouldn't have tried to rob me of everything by forging documents and bribing corrupt doctors, the judge intervened. Counselor, the evidence is clear. Move on. After my testimony, they called other witnesses. Betty testified about what she had observed for months. Dr. Reynolds presented my perfect cognitive evaluations. The bank manager testified about the fraudulent access attempt to my accounts. The detectives who witnessed the threats in my house recounted what happened. The evidence was overwhelming and irrefutable. When Pamela Morris took the stand, she tried to blame everything on Carl. He hired me to sell the house. I didn't know it was fraud. But the bank records and the communications between them destroyed her defense. Dr. Vance, confronted with copies of the false certificates he had signed, finally broke down and confessed everything. He had signed fraudulent documents for more than 15 people in the last 3 years, earning over $50,000 in bribes. His confession sank any hope Carl and Audrey had of escaping. The most painful moment came when Audrey's lawyer called her to testify in her own defense. She went up to the stand, crying. I loved my mother, she began in a broken voice. I still love her. But Carl convinced me it was for her own good. He said she was getting old, that she needed professional care, that the house was too much for her. He made me believe we were helping her. Lies wrapped in tears. The prosecutor tore her apart during cross-examination. Mrs. Reed, did your mother ever ask you for help? No, but did she ever show signs of mental incapacity? Well, sometimes she forgot things. Sometimes, like any normal person. Does that justify forging medical certificates? Silence. Did you know that your husband was cheating on you with Pamela Morris? Audrey paled. Yes. And yet you conspired with both of them to rob your mother. We needed the money. Carl had enormous debts. We were going to lose everything. So you decided to sacrifice your mother to save your marriage and your finances. Audrey burst into tears. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, Mum. Her eyes desperately searched for mine from the stand. I saw genuine pain there, real remorse. But it was too late. Actions have consequences. Carl did not show a hint of emotion. No apologies, no remorse, only cold rage at having been caught. That told me everything I needed to know about the monster he really was under the charming son-in-law mask. The judge deliberated for 2 days. When we returned to hear the verdict, the tension in the room was palpable. In the case of the state versus Carl Reed, the judge began in a grave voice, this court finds you guilty of all charges: first-degree fraud, forgery of documents, coercion, conspiracy, and elder abuse. Carl closed his eyes, but showed no other reaction. You are sentenced to 12 years in prison without possibility of parole before serving 8 years. In addition, you will pay full restitution to the victim for emotional damages and legal costs in the amount of $100,000. 12 years. Carl would be an old man when he got out. In the case of the state versus Audrey Reed, my heart stopped. This court recognizes that you were partially manipulated by your husband. However, your actions were conscious and deliberate. I find you guilty of conspiracy to commit fraud and complicity in forgery of documents. Audrey sobbed audibly. Taking into account your partial cooperation and apparent remorse, I sentence you to 4 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 2 years. You will also pay restitution of $30,000. 4 years. My daughter would spend 4 years in prison. Pamela Morris received 8 years. Dr. Vance, 10 years plus the permanent loss of his medical license. Justice had been served, but I didn't feel triumphant, only empty. After the verdict, as we left the courtroom, Audrey managed to get closer. The guards stopped her, but she yelled, "Mum, Mum, please forgive me. I love you." I stopped. I turned to look at her one last time. "I loved you too, Audrey, with all my heart. But love doesn't mean letting you destroy me. I hope you use these years to really understand what you did. And maybe someday, when you get out, we can talk. Maybe." It wasn't forgiveness, but it wasn't eternal condemnation either. It was a door left barely ajar, a microscopic possibility of future redemption. If she truly changed, the following months were about slow healing. I started therapy with a psychologist specializing in family trauma. I sold some objects that reminded me too much of Audrey and Carl. I redecorated my house, making it mine again. Betty became my best friend, the sister I never had. Other neighbors I knew superficially approached me offering genuine friendship. I formed a new circle, small but authentic. Michael became a close friend. Sometimes he would come over for coffee, and we would share stories about our lives. I discovered that I had a whole community that I had never noticed before. 1 year after the trial, I was sitting in my renovated yard, having tea in the afternoon sun. The flowers I had planted bloomed in bright shades of yellow and coral. Betty arrived with freshly baked pound cake. We sat together in comfortable silence, enjoying the moment. My phone rang. It was Michael. "Eleanor, I thought you'd want to know. Audrey has been well behaved in prison. She took classes, worked in the library, attended therapy. She is requesting to see you. You don't have to if you don't want to, but she has the right to ask." I looked at the flowers in my yard. I thought about second chances, about forgiveness, about what it really means to heal. "Tell him I'll think about it," I finally replied. "I'm not ready yet, but maybe someday." I hung up and looked at Betty. She smiled with understanding. "Take your time. Forgiveness cannot be rushed." She was right. I had recovered my house, my dignity, my life. I had learned that family is not always blood. That betrayal can come from where you least expect it. But also that the strength you never knew you had emerges when you need it most. I survived. I didn't just survive. I was reborn. And that finally was enough.